What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I am continuing on with my recap of the Scream franchise. I am now up to Scream 5, or as it was titled, Scream 2022. Now, this movie's taking place 25 years after the original. We've got a new crop of characters, but some old favorites are back once again as well. And up until this point in the series, this I think was the best movie since the original. I think it actually surpasses part two as my second favorite in the series. It's definitely a step above three, and I definitely like it better than part four. So this was a nice change of pace, and it's interesting to see how well it actually was because this is the first movie in the Scream series since the passing of the great Wes Craven. So they brought in Radio Silence, who was responsible for the movie Ready or Not, which came out a few years ago. Great movie, really good horror comedy. So they kind of seem perfect to fill in the director's chair for this movie. And I got to say, I think they did a really great job, and I'm glad to see them come back for part 6 as well. Now, I want to go ahead and mention here up at the top that this review will contain some spoilers. So if you haven't seen Scream 5, definitely check it out before watching the rest of this review. That way you don't get spoiled out on anything. So this time around, we're following a new character, Samantha Carpenter, who's played by Melissa Barrera. When she finds out that her sister Tara, played by Jenna Ortega, was almost brutally killed by Ghostface, she goes to Woodsboro to try to not only help her sister and reconnect with her sister, because it's been about 5 years since they really connected. She tries to help figure out who this new Ghostface is that's terrorizing Woodsboro once again. So she enlists the help of Dewey, David Arquette once again coming back, and then eventually we get Gale Weathers and Sydney as well to help out this new batch of kids that includes Deputy Hicks's son, Wes Hicks, Randy Meeks, his niece and nephew, two twins, and then a couple of other kids that are thrown in there as well. So it's kind of a nice tie-in with the original because you have kids of people in former films, you have nieces and nephews, you even have one character that lives in the house that was Stu Macher's house from the original. Very interesting stuff. So yeah, I mean, with part 5, there's a lot going on here. This is playing up all the latest stuff as far as requels, which is basically like a remake and kind of a sequel in a way. This doesn't quite go the Halloween 2018 route because with that, it's a sequel, direct sequel to the original, and it ignores all the other sequels. This is a continuation of the Scream series, but in a way does kind of feel like a remake of the original as well, but it has characters in it from the previous films. So it's a legacy sequel, I guess, is what they want to call it as well. And this movie does a good job playing up, like I've mentioned in my previous Scream reviews, it does a good job playing up the horror and the comedy elements. The horror here is fantastic. There's some great kills. There's a lot of good atmosphere throughout the movie. It gets brutal in certain aspects of the movie as well, but the comedy's there. The comedy works really well. It's funny. A lot of these characters are likable. This is the first time in the series, really since the original and maybe even part 2, where you actually have some characters like in the high schoolers and whatnot that are genuinely likable. I like the twins, Randy Meeks' niece and nephew. I think both of them are great. I do like Samantha Carpenter as well, and her sister Tara. This is actually a good batch of kids for the most part, and they all really work. You can see for once that they all actually are friends. They all feel like they go to the same school. Where especially part 4, just when they introduce all those kids, like I said before, you know, outside of Hayden Panettiere and maybe a little bit with Emma Roberts, the rest of the kids are just forgettable. None of them really all that likable. Here, it's a little bit different. You actually do get invested with these characters, and you know, it seems like they work out for the most part. This movie does take some big risks. You do kind of sideline the original three characters a good bit. They're not the main protagonists here. You know, this is about Samantha and the new group of kids. So Sydney, Dewey, and Gale all kind of take a back seat, but that's not a bad thing. They get utilized enough in the movie to where their characters still have a lot of meaning, but they aren't, you know, just making little cameos either. And I do have to say, it's very heartbreaking seeing Dewey finally get killed off. It's a great send off, although his death scene is a little weird because it didn't have to happen the way that it does. But nonetheless, you know, it still happens. And I do think it's a genuinely heartbreaking scene because this is a character, you know, he's been in all the movies up to this point. Originally, he was actually supposed to die in that first movie, and I still do think to this day that had his character died in the original, it would have had a bigger impact on it. But I've enjoyed his character throughout the rest of this series, and to see him finally go, you know, it kind of sucks. You know, it sucks he's not going to be in any more of these unless they find a way to somehow revive him, or they pull a Randy Meeks and he's on some videotape that he just happened to have filmed, you know, before getting murdered or whatever. But with Gale and Sydney, you know, they have a little bit more to do here, especially toward the latter part of this movie, and I think they do a good job bringing them back as well. Once we get to the Ghostface reveals, this is another one, unfortunately, not all that great, but not all that bad either. If you're looking at it from the aspect of this being a requel or a remake, it's pretty obvious who the two killers are going to be. You have Richie, who is Samantha's boyfriend, played by Jack Quaid. You know, it's the boyfriend. Hello, you know, we're doing that whole thing again. And then you have the character Amber, who lives in Stu Macher's house. Hey, what are the chances that they're going to be the killers? It's a little obvious, but I think it works for the most part. At the end of the day, I think it's a solid movie, and for it to be the first movie without Wes Craven behind the camera, I think it's a solid entry. And like I said, up until this point, it is my favorite after the original. Overall, I would probably give it about a 7 out of 10. It's a solid slasher movie. It's good to see a movie like this coming out in this day and age and actually having some depth behind it. It you know, it works well. It's good seeing the original cast come back once again for the series, but I do like the introduction of these new characters, and I can't wait to see where they go in the future of this franchise. That's about it from me, guys. If you have seen Scream 5, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe for more reviews in the near future. I will leave all my links down below on where you can follow me and check out more of my reviews. And until next time, I'll catch you all later.